All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is John Freitag. I'm with All American Hospice. I'm here today with Donna from Rocktop Law, Donna Dacha, Desiree Krager from Premier Homecare, and Julio is our special guest, Julio Briones with the Briones Consulting Group. So Julio is going to talk to you today about recruiting and building company culture. And Julio, before we get started, for everyone who's joining who might not be familiar with you, could you tell us a little bit about yourself, like a little background?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Welcome and thanks for being here. Yeah, my name is Julio Briones. I'm the owner of Briones Consulting Group, and I've been involved in the home care particularly for about 20 plus years, and specifically in the private pay sector of home care for the last, I would say about 15 of those 25. And my career has taken me through everything. I started out as a recruiter. I've worked my way through different positions all the way up until, helping develop and build national franchises. And I think as of right now, I've got 42 agencies under my belt with, 30 of them reaching the 7-figure mark. So our company focuses on all aspects and looking at the business as a whole, not just marketing or not just operations and not just recruitment. We understand that you need all of these elements in order to get your business where you want it to be, and hence our company motto, prepare, plan, and rebuild. All right, so if you guys are ready, I can go ahead and
let's jump in.
The presentation here. All right. So today, what I plan on talking a little bit about is retention practices and culture, and how all of this affects caregiver recruitment. All right. So one key principle that I'm a big believer of, is that people do go to work for money, but that's not everything. They want to be recognized, they want praise, they want rewards, and it's not always that extra 50 cents an hour or $1 an hour or whatever it is, depending on where you're getting your caregivers. All right, so I already introduced myself a little bit, just a little more, you guys. I'll be sharing the PDF of this presentation with everyone who wants it at the end here. All right, so let's start talking about culture. Okay, so what is company culture? It's essentially, shared beliefs. So what is it that your company believes in? What is it that you guys, how do you set the standard, set that tone for how you're going to run your business? Everything from the top down, everybody's got to buy into this. And everyone has to understand that this is how it's going to be. If your culture is based on, customer service and value, then everybody from the CEO all the way down to the caregivers have to believe in and buy into this concept of value-driven business. If you have a value where, culture of, I'm in it for me and no one else, then that's the culture you're going to establish. And people will see, depending on how you communicate it. And it's not always going to be verbal. It's not just in your policies and procedures. It's on how you show things non-verbally as well. If you're coming in as an owner and you're showing yourself to be, all about me, I don't really care about you, I don't care about what's going on, and I have, my own favorites, so to speak, then that's the culture that's going to have. And as a caregiver, or even as office staff, I'm just not going to buy into this. And I already know my time here is limited. And that's kind of the reaction you're going to get. So how does all of this, tie into caregiver retention? Well, retention is, again, it's a series of activities that are going to reduce turnover. And just some random facts here. 70% is the average turnover in the senior care industry. Okay, and 50% of your caregivers are not going to last 30 days. Right, and a lot of this has to do with how you set the stage and how how people are coming in right from the very beginning. And again, that culture, whether you're verbalizing it or not, doesn't matter what you're saying, it's what people are saying about you and how they're perceiving your process. So let's look at this from a dollars and cents point of view. It takes about $2,500 to recruit, hire, and train a new caregiver. Okay, so from start to finish, the minute you get them in the door till they walk out the door, you've spent about $2,500 if they're leaving within 30 days. So let's say you're a high volume business and you're hiring and losing and having to rehire 100 caregivers a year. Just your turnover is ridiculous. Okay, that's $50,000 you're losing every year by not having proper company culture, not having proper retention practices. And it's just really insane, the amount of money that you're going to lose. So having some, a little bit of investment up front to improve your culture and your retention practices to keep those caregivers just a little bit longer are going to help your business in the long run. Now, if we're talking about specifically the home care industry, your average caregiver is going to work about 3 clients before they leave, like the ones that stay beyond those 90 days. So if you're doing your average industry average client lifetime value of about $11,000, that means you're going to get about a $33,000 return per caregiver. Okay, so now let's factor this into what you're paying your caregivers. If today's market, with everything going on with unemployment and everything else, you're spending about $30,000 a year. So if your caregiver is only lasting you for 3 clients, bringing you in an industry average of 33,000, and you're paying 30,000 or 32,000 a year to keep your caregiver, something's off. You need to be able to extend the time that your caregiver is with you in order to make up your returns. So how do we look at this? Well, let's start by understanding, our good buddy Maslow, if anybody's familiar with him or not. And these are the hierarchy of needs. And this is what kind of the core basis of what's going to help you keep, what I believe is going to help you keep your employees. Okay, so we're going to go through all of these a little bit and give a few tips on how all of this will affect your culture and your retention practices. So the physiological needs, very simply put, that's food, clothing, and shelter. By you providing a job and providing that paycheck, this is the most base need. This is what you're helping them provide for themselves, and it's allowing for self-sufficiency. So this is really where you're getting them in the door, offering the job. Let's set a competitive wage. Let's get them in the door. Let's get them to interview. And those who have been dealing with all of this wonderfulness with caregivers, you will understand that, sometimes getting them to show up to the interview can be a challenge. And we're going to address how to do this, because I'm going to let you guys in on something that's a little bit controversial for some. I don't believe in sign-on bonuses or additional enticements to get people to come and work for you. If you have a solid program, that parts of what we're going to talk about here, you're gonna see that that's not going to be a challenge for you. Okay, so moving on, what are your safety needs? Okay, caregivers, you have to satisfy their needs for that too. They need to feel that you've got their back. Are you providing the right personal protective equipment? Are your policies and procedures set up in a way that there's a process that if an accusation is made against a caregiver, that it will be, investigated properly? Are you setting yourself up in such a way where the caregivers feel they can come to management and say, hey, I'm having A, B, and C problem, or look, Mrs. Jones is difficult, or Mrs. Jones is wonderful, but her daughter is, extremely difficult, and they're expecting more. Look, I'm supposed to be doing A, B, and C during my shift, and they want me to walk the dog while balancing a plate on my head. I mean, what are you doing? How are you showing that their safety and that they're being protected and everything else? So take a look at that when you're building your retention planning, and really analyze how you're protecting your caregivers. Next, we have a need to feel that we belong. That is acceptance, recognition, and additional support. So if your caregiver is doing wrong, you're quick to say something. Like I'm an Army vet. I was in the Army back in the 90s. And one principle that I remember very clearly is that you praise in public and you punish in private. Okay. So when your caregiver is doing something wrong, you bring them into the office, you talk to them, you write them up, terminate, do whatever you need to do. But you do it quietly. You don't do things to make like a terrible visible example out of somebody. And that's great. Or you might be the type of person that wants to come in and yell at people. I don't recommend that. It's never good for retention, and other people will shy away from working with you. But here's my question. What are you doing to promote the good behaviors of your caregivers? Here's a few low-cost suggestions. MailChimp is a free email account. All of your caregivers should be on an email list where you're, congratulating and rewarding good behavior. That public praise really goes a long way. And sending out this newsletter to your caregivers, even to some of your clients, hey, Janet did a wonderful job. Look, so-and-so is doing great. Another suggestion is to have maybe a office or a company Facebook group that's only for employees, where you're rewarding this wonderful behavior. Okay, it's a closed and private group. You're showing people, hey, so-and-so is doing great. Hey, we had no client complaints about this caregiver. Hey, our coordinator is doing a fantastic job, was highly evaluated. Some agencies, some companies here use third-party companies like Homecare Pulse in order to evaluate and show rankings. Are your employees getting good reviews? Are you promoting that? Is there a way for you to really show people that they are part of the family, that it's not just a job? Okay. And this brings us to the next things, esteem. Are you promoting your best employees? What are you doing to go out of the way to let them know that you appreciate them? Here's a tip. Instead of giving a cash bonus, okay, fix a problem for them. Because here's what tends to happen. If I have an employee and I tell them, hey, listen, you're doing a great job, I'm going to give you an extra $100 bonus on your next paycheck. By the time that paycheck comes, I've already spent that money 5 times over. I've got to pay this bill, I've got to pay that bill, and the actual dollar value loses its meaning. So if you want to make the reward meaningful, if you, even as a bonus or as, hey, thanks for taking on this extra shift, either use an app of some sort, there's a ton of them out there that you can give an immediate cash payout, and it'll still track things for accounting purposes, or fix a problem for them. Say, hey, listen, you've done a great job, bring me X bill and we'll take care of it for you. Or here's a $100 gift card to the local grocery store. I've bought you groceries for the week. So now it becomes a tangible reward and something that, that holds actual meaning. It's not just, oh yeah, they gave me a little extra money, but they owe that to me anyway because I'm doing well, versus, hey, listen, I've come in, I've done a good job and they recognize and value what I'm doing. So therefore, they took care of a problem for me. My car needed a tire, had a blowout, they replaced the tire. Or look, I really didn't know how I was going to pay my cell phone this month, but that's one less thing I have to worry about. It changes the perspective of the employee and improves retention. So now let's move on even further up and let's talk about self-actualization. Are you giving your caregivers sufficient training? Are you giving them the opportunity to not work for you anymore? I know that sounds crazy, okay? And this is the typical reaction that I get, like, why would I want my caregivers not to work for me? Well, no, I'm saying, are you giving them that opportunity? Are you bringing them the opportunity to get better trained, to get additional certifications? Are you opening yourself up to opportunities to maybe hire within? Hey, you're a caregiver today. I see you're really great at, rallying the troops, so to speak. If let's say you have a facility, hey, look, you're really good at getting the caregivers, to show up on time. How about, are you interested in a supervisory role? Or if you're in a home care agency, hey, look, they really take to you. Are you interested in possibly learning how to do recruitment or how to do coordinating or some other supervisory position? It dangles the carrot, so to speak, to get them to want to stay. And other people see this. They see that they're not just going to stay stuck at that level forever. One of the biggest hurdles that when I started out my career, I was doing recruitment. And one of the biggest hurdles that we had was I used to hear all the time, I've been working here for X number of years and I've not gotten a raise. Or once I get into the company, nobody ever gives raises. Everywhere you go, everybody's paying the same. Well, are you evaluating the performance? Are you really looking at what's going on? See, one of the techniques that we used to employ and that I've employed and with a number of my clients has been, you start off right around market value, but you evaluate them at the end of 90 days. Hey, listen, you've shown up on time, you've had no complaints, we've randomly shown up at the client, we are seeing that you're not using your cell phone, there's really not a major thing. Here's an extra 50 cents an hour or 25 cents an hour. Seems small, but let's think about this. We were all young at one point and we've all worked retail or fast food, one of the two things. And just think, whenever they gave you that really small raise, but it was meaningful because you knew that they at least recognized you were doing your job right. And small raises add up over the course of the year. They're easy to adapt to as far as from an employee point of view, but just knowing that at some point you're being valued, that's what's going on. Your reviews, somebody gets an excellent review, and again, what are your bonuses? What are you giving to them? Training, career advancement, small raises, all of these things add up. Okay. So what are some key strategies to take away from all of this? Well, number one is have very clear expectations. And this needs to start at the moment of the application. One strategy, I'll tell you, I saw this when I walked into a home care agency, and I wish I could take credit for this, but I can't. This was about 6-7 years ago now. They had this big foam board, similar to what I have in the back, with all the rules and expectations written down so that as the caregivers are applying, they know exactly what is expected of them. And if they weren't willing to adhere to that, they knew they could just leave and not apply. So this way, the ones that stayed understood right away, this is what's going to be expected of me. And right next to it, they had another foam board with what they can expect from the staff. Okay, and this is in the room where they were filling out their applications. Okay, so the expectations were clear, there was no ambiguity, and in this particular case, the culture of the office lived and died off of those expectations. The caregivers were expected to show up in the appropriate uniform. They were expected not to use the cell phones. But on the other end, the management was going to have their back. Management was expected to have their paychecks on time. They were going to assist them in whatever way. And, they did everything right. Like they would do random pop-ins to make sure, and they would reward these people accordingly. So the expectations were set and they were followed religiously. Another key strategy here is to keep an eye out for clicks. This is more for home care and hospice and home health than it is for like skilled nursing or anything else. When you're having schedulers tend to like to work with particular groups of people. So what does this do? This means that a lot of agencies, and a lot, especially like home care, home health, hospice, they'll have a big pool of caregivers that have worked for them over the years. But because their coordinators will only work with a certain fixed number because they like them, or, and you'll hear the conversations. Oh, look, please do this. Come on, you've done this for me before. And they develop a special friendship with a core group of caregivers and ignore the rest. You need to put a stop to that, okay? If you do not have a clear balance and everyone is being communicated with and everyone feels like they belong, and if you don't remove that clickiness, okay, you're bringing everybody back to a mentality of where they were, and you're going to have people be ostracized. And that's just never good. Some things, if you already have this problem in your company, a couple of tips to get rid of it is go through your roster and have a meeting with your coordinator, your schedulers, your management team, and sit there and say, okay, why is it that we have a roster of inactive caregivers of 200, but we're only actively using 40 at a time? What's the problem here? Well, why are we experiencing this level of turnaround? And you start there, have them reach out, start getting people back to work if you have the cases available. Even a small case, just start communicating. Once again, I'll refer back to, MailChimp is one of the greatest tools. I'm not promoting them in any way. It's just, there's a lot of free email clients. It's just, that's one of the easier ones to set up. Set up that email list, get people, communicate. Drip campaigns are fantastic for this. Shoot out a quick email, case available, such and such time, shifts available. If you're in a facility, an assisted living facility or skilled nursing, and you have needs, the same thing applies with your nursing staff, with your CNA staff. Hey, we need to fill a shift, send it out there. Let people know that work is available. Let people know that they are all going to be included. And you need to monitor and correct immediately the behavior to eliminate clickiness, right? And finally, the last key strategy I want you guys to understand here is that you need to praise often and share exceptional performance, okay? Set up your Facebook page, your Facebook business page, set up a private Facebook group, make it public, send an email out to all your, that you include all of your clients and your referral partners. Let them all know that you have great caregivers. Let them know. This will increase your business along the way as well, because if they see that you're recognizing and praising, and that means you're attracting better caregivers, not only is it going to improve your retention, it's going to improve your recruitment, and it's going to bring you in more business. Because one of the big things that we want is we want to encourage cheerleaders, okay? Nothing grows your business faster than word of mouth. And the same thing happens with recruitment. Nothing will improve your recruitment more than word of mouth. Just like you go after your clients and want them to leave you a good Google review, you want to make sure that your caregivers are posting about how great it is to work for you on Google, on Indeed. Have them post on LinkedIn if they have an account, have them leave you a Facebook review. Wherever it is that they are present on social media, you want them to sing your praises. Look, it's a pretty commonly known fact in customer service side. Your angriest clients are your loudest clients, okay? And why you need to flip that around. if you have somebody that's upset with working with you, that they're mad at one of your managers, they're just not happy, they're going to make a lot of noise. They're going to tell everybody. And if anyone who's been in business more than 10 minutes is going to know that the caregiver community is extremely tight-knit. Bad reputation will kill your recruitment faster than it will kill your business. This is probably one of the most forgiving industries on the planet as far as business, but one of the least forgiving industries when it comes to recruitment. All right. So for now,
How about all the empty chairs? How about that one?
pardon? Okay. Well, I'm going to open up the floor for questions. If anyone has any questions about my presentation, any comments, if you want to tell me I'm just dead wrong on everything, that's great. Yeah. You can also tell me I'm a genius. I'm okay with either one.
No, that was great, Julio. I'm looking to stop your screen share here.
Okay, hold on. Here we go.
You got it.
All
All right, you're back. No, that was awesome. Actually, I took down a few notes, but I'll give everyone else a chance to ask some questions. Anyone have any questions for Julio? I think it was a great presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
I do.
All right.
Hi, I'm Jerry Rothkopf. I don't own a home care agency, and a matter of fact, technically, I don't even work in healthcare.
Right.
Tangentially, yes. So my question to you, looking at it on a broader basis,
Okay.
is that and what you're saying makes sense. And by the way, it's not just for home care, it's for every employer.
Yes. Oh, yes, absolutely.
But is that enough in today's world? What I mean by that is, can you opine on a more national level? What else needs to change from regulations on a more national level to truly level the playing field and value CNAs and such? Can you address those issues in addition to what each home care owner can do, or executive director of an assisted living community, et cetera?
Well, yes, I actually, it's pretty funny. I had this very conversation a couple of days ago with somebody. Okay. A friend of mine owns a compliance company, and we were talking about this. The problem is that there, from a regulatory standpoint, right now, I'll give you, not opining in one way or the other on, the details of the vaccine or anything like that, but the vaccine mandates, that's becoming an issue of concern for a lot of people. There's still a large number of people that are just not okay with it. And this is part of what the recruitment problem is going to bring. Also, pay is a big issue. There's just a lot of hype in the media about good or bad on the vaccine, good or bad on minimum wage, good or bad on all of this stuff. And this is why I really do believe, and I will stick by this till my very end, that we can only have so much intervention. CMS can only do so much to change things. I mean, just from a Medicaid and Medicare perspective, they should probably raise their rates so that a fairer wage can be paid for agencies that are not focused on private pay. All right, and for facilities that do rely on or want to provide a better quality of service, but they rely on Medicaid to pay. But apart from that, it's really going to come down to hyperlocal. It's going to come down to the individual agency, the individual facility. If they improve their own recruitment and retention policies and company culture, they'll be able to compete with the Amazons, with the Walmarts, all of these other places that are just, they're essentially killing the senior care business, all right, as far as its staffing goes. Because, I mean, look, I'll use this from a personal perspective. Many years ago, my wife was a caregiver. That's how I actually met her. And, we've been together for many years. But when she started in this business, she did it out of the passion of being a caregiver. Okay. Now, other companies paid well, but the agency that she worked for in particular, they were so focused on solid retention and solid, validation of the employees that she never felt the drive to leave. Okay. She worked for them for about 11 years. Okay. And that is really what it comes down to. Even when the pay was adjusted one way or the other, it never became the focal point. Because one thing about the senior care industry in particular is that this is a passion for most of the workers. It is more than the money. Now, many do end up leaving to go to work for Amazon or Walmart or whatever other place that they're going to, simply out of the need to survive, because a lot of agencies, we'll take this back. I mean, we can go back to October of 2015 when the big labor law changes happened during the tail end of the Obama administration, when they removed the live-in exemption, and they added in all these extra rules when it comes to labor practices for caregivers. If they're attending different clients or this, so for the mobility aspect, it became difficult, and a lot of agencies started implementing very quietly policies where they won't give more than 35 hours a week. Okay. And it was all because of the payroll problem based on overregulation. So all of this became an issue. Many states, they stopped live-in care altogether because it became very complicated. Like, for example, in some states, it's 13 hours, other states it's 16 hours you have to pay. And then if there's not enough rest, you're talking about 21 hours. So you're creating as many as 60, 70 hours a week of overtime. And this became overly complicated. So they just stopped offering live-in service, which made it more affordable for the client. And again, provided steady means of employment for the caregiver. So I don't think regulation is the problem. An easing of regulation would probably help, but it really is the agency or the company needs to focus on why they're doing what they're doing and convey that information to the caregiver, so to ignite or to maintain that high level of passion that allows them to continue to do their job. Make sense? I hope I answered your question somewhat.
Yes, thank you.
And that's a great question, but you brought up a lot of good points. And I don't know is your wife an outlier, or is she the norm? I do agree that people who are working in healthcare and working with seniors, they're doing it because they want to be there. They're doing it because they like taking care of people. But like you said, it's so hard to compete with like Amazon. If who can blame someone? They could be the most caring individual in the world, but if they're getting paid $15 an hour versus $20 an hour, it's kind of tough, right? How do you make that decision?
Well, because it's not as simple, as I said, it's not as simple as the dollar amount. Right. And believe me, some of the techniques and stuff that I've talked about here, that's what really they're centered around. How do you compete with Amazon? The biggest competitor that you have is not the 15 or now that's almost $20 an hour from Amazon that they're paying. That's not what you're competing against. Most of the time, what you're competing against is the steadiness of the work.
Right.
The problem with caregivers, especially traveling caregivers like hospice workers or or not CNAs so much, but hospice workers or certified home health aides, the biggest problem you have there, or home health nurses and things like that, is that there's no predictability in the schedule. If I go to work at Walmart, they're going to give me a schedule and I know exactly how much money I'm going to make for the next 2 weeks. I don't have that in home care. I don't have that in
your
home
lifestyle
health.
and your
Right. And this is why, again, that removing that clickiness becomes so important, because if I see that, Sally down the street is a terrible caregiver, but she gets along with your coordinator, so she's getting her 40 hours a week, but I'm a good caregiver, but I'm not friends with your coordinator, so I'm only getting 15 hours a week, I'm going to go somewhere else to make up my hours. And you'll probably never see me again. And I'm going to probably say, if anyone asks me, oh yeah, no, don't go work there. They have their people that they like, and that's who they're going to give the jobs to. Where as opposed to if you eliminate that in your agency, this is again one of the big things. If everyone is equally getting, you're equally distributing the workload so that people don't feel left out, they're less likely to do that. They may go to work for, you know, another agency to make up the hours, which is again, this is a strategy I didn't really talk about here, but it's actually a very effective one. Partner up. You know, like you may not have enough hours to give everybody 40 hours, but between you and XYZ agency down the street, you will. And caregivers are used to working for multiple agencies. As long as there's an agreement that they're not just going to flat out steal your employee, this actually works out really, really well long-term. As a long-term strategy, it's fantastic because you're partnering up, you're non-competing. Your hospice, their home care, your hospice, their home health. So let's work together. Hey, listen, she needs some extra hours. You got it. Now the caregiver sees that you're looking out for them. And the other agency is helping. So now, again, it all comes down together. You're building your business and you're keeping your employees because now you've created a sort of a symbiosis there where that home care agency is more likely to refer your hospice agency because you're providing them with employees. So you're fixing their problem and they're in turn fixing yours. And this is where the problem comes in. Again, you're not competing with $1 per hour because please believe me, I've been doing recruiting for a very long time. Before I got into business development, before I got into operations, this is where I cut my teeth in the industry. It always comes down to the same thing. You're not competing against the dollar per hour. There was a popular belief in this industry, and it still exists, that a caregiver will leave you for a nickel. The fact is, they won't leave you for that nickel if they feel that you're doing a better job. Make sense?
Makes sense. Des, you had a question?
Yes.
Yeah. Hi, Julio. I wanted to ask your opinion because you said that you started out in recruitment,
Yeah.
and that was like your primary focus. In your career, do you find now that aside from just, in the past, caregivers or anybody for that matter is looking for employment, they go to employee ads, Indeed or what have you. What would you say like that, like reviews on Google, what are the other ways that people caregivers are, looking to find good companies like to work for? Do you think that the amount of reviews you have an influence over?
Huge impact. Yeah, look, and I'm sorry to cut you off there. Yeah,
No.
But social proof. Okay, we live in a world where 70% of consumers will check a review before making a buying purchase. That also applies to jobs. Okay, I'm going to tell you, my daughter's 22. She is she works for a high-end staffing agency. Okay, that's the first thing that she did when she went looking for a job. Well, what do other people that have worked there said? Mm-hmm. That's one of the things, one of the focuses at the company that she's working for. This is just all across the board. It doesn't matter what your industry is. Again, we live in a world where this is king. Okay, that's all. So if you have 100 reviews and you have a 99% positive review rating, you're going to have a higher likelihood of getting top quality employees than you would if you're not focusing on that. Again, this is part of, a big part of, like, let's say, for example, when I come in and do an assessment for an agency that's having a recruiting issue, that's one of the first things that I will do with them is say, look, let's take a look. Let's look at your Google My Business. Okay. Your Google My Business listing that provides you a link for reviews. Is that part of your email signature for every email going out to everybody, including caregivers? Okay. Now, are your coordinating staff following up with the caregivers? hey, Sally, listen, you've done a great job. Look, we need to ask you a favor. Do you mind leaving us a review on what you think working with us? That 30-second statement could literally improve your not just application rates, but the actual show up rates for interviews by almost 40%.
Wow.
Okay.
Thank you. I have one more quick question.
Yeah.
And this is a forward thinking question, but also it's like, this is what we are living through. This is our present moment. I don't know if anybody listening had seen a national company did a poll. They are a shift work company, and the poll was to choose between three things. Would you, if you were forced to get the vaccine, would you quit? Would you find another job in healthcare, or would you get the vaccine?
Mhm.
And I think it was some 70% said that they would just quit. And then the second level was they'll find another job in healthcare, or the other one was they'll get the, the vaccine. That was the lowest amount. I mean, I think that, just giving aside from money, okay, the second thing would be, this situation with the vaccine. It's extremely difficult to do business because of people's, they have strong beliefs in it. And if you haven't been, in my opinion, if you haven't been vaccinated by now, do we really think that you're going to get vaccinated? We've done, an insane amount of education and personalized talking and continued education. And here we are, how many years or how many months, later, and coming up on a year, people are getting their boosters. What what now? I just feel like, and in addition to what you were saying, being a caregiver, that's a passion that comes like from within. It's just like a part of you, ingrained in you, that you want to, care for somebody. I'm often seeing, and my company is seeing, like, that is really becoming like almost generational, that there's like the new generations that they don't feel that way, or they don't have that in them. They want to, work from home, or,
Oh, well,
even our food, look at our food industry, look at it's just, I know that's kind of a broad,
it is.
statement,
It's a very broad question, but I'm going to actually dissect it, because you talked about two very distinct issues there. Okay. So with the first issue about the vaccine, it's kind of, I kind of touched on a little bit with Mr. Rothkopf's question there. And the fact is that is a big part, but this is what it comes down to. Think back to my presentation, the hierarchy of needs. We talked about safety and belonging. Okay. Those actually, they go up the chain as to the pinnacle of our needs, before we reach the point to where we are happy. Okay. Now, with the vaccine, I can tell you from my own experience, I have seen caregivers, RNs, LPNs, CNAs, all up and down the chain. I have seen doctors that are fully vaccinated quit their jobs because their company was mandating the vaccine, and they did not feel it was fair to force someone to get something they don't want to get. Okay. So that, again, it has to do with what is your company culture? Because there's a big difference between saying, okay, listen, we don't want to do this, but because of regulation, we have to ask you to get the vaccine. Okay. Versus saying, listen, you're either getting this vaccine or you're out of a job. See, I'm saying the same exact thing both ways, but how I deliver my message is drastically different from one example to the other. And this is what will help alleviate that. I mean, look, there's always the option, even with the 100 employee thing that was announced the other day, there's always the option of just getting tested. So it's going to be one of these things where you're going to have to make a judgment call, see what's legal in your state, see what the law requires locally, and make a decision that is best for your business based on your beliefs, safety, and the growth and prosperity of your business in mind first. Okay, it's not something I would ever advise somebody to say, make your employees get it, don't make your employees get it. That goes beyond my scope of practice.
Yeah, we
Okay.
could probably talk forever about it too.
Yeah. And now the other issue about the remote work, well, and I'm going to just go ahead and apologize ahead of time, because this is not a popular or always politically correct opinion. There is a reason that for longevity, the most successful caregivers, or the ones that have the most longevity, are not necessarily generationally American born. Okay, and depending on the area, and there's a lot of factors involved, some of the people that do the most caregiver work tend to be immigrants or first generation born here, and they see it as a means to an end. Another great place to look for caregivers or that will have that passion are those that are seeking career advancement, meaning they're starting out as a home health aide or a CNA in order to work their way up the chain to become nurses or doctors. Okay, so those are the two biggest categories where you're going to find that I want to work from home mentality less. Okay, those that are seeing it as an opportunity with flexibility to feed their job, which tends to be, not that it always is, but tends to be those that are foreign born, or those that are looking for practical experience as far as a stepping stone for career advancement. Okay, and this is why, again, it's so important that these opportunities are looked at when it comes to your caregiver staff, because you don't know what everyone's circumstance is. Maybe somebody is taking this because they just don't want to go to college right away, so they became a home health aide or a CNA in order to get some work experience, put some money in their pocket while they figure things out. And maybe they do have ambitions to go into business, or maybe they have ambitions to go into nursing or something else, and you can provide that stepping stone within your organization in order to give them the career that they're looking for. Okay, and that's kind of how you combat those two very distinct issues.
That's a great point too, Julio, because I think if you talk to a lot of directors of nursing and you talk to a lot of executive directors or administrators, a great majority of them started out as caregivers.
Yes.
And when they do eventually move to those positions and they move through the ranks, they're going to want to continue to work with your company. They're going to continue to refer to you, whether through their facility or just send you employees, because they know that you've given them the chance.
Exactly.
Donna, you had a question.
Well, first of all, Julio, I want to say thank you so much for joining us. And I think what gets lost in all this, and I appreciate what you said in the beginning, is people want to be appreciated. People want to work. And you're right about the caregivers. I've been doing this for, I hate to say, like over 30 years now. And I've been in all aspects of the healthcare, and we just forget about appreciating the staff that we have.
Yes.
And I've seen a lot of cliques going on within communities. And when you're dealing with home health aides, they're really kind of out on their own, right? You're not there to babysit them all day. And treating people like adults and making sure that they're appreciated goes such a long way. And I think we forget that in this culture, and we forget this in this field. So It isn't always about money. Don't get me wrong, people got to live.
Yes.
But so I don't really have a question, more or less just saying thank you for bringing what I feel like common sense sometimes to the employment, looking at it from a different kind of an angle. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate the comment. And you're absolutely right. People do need to live, and this is why competitive pay, price setting is important and competitive pay is important. But I can tell you, I've seen people stick with agents, and I've asked, I've been doing this. Look, I'm about to be 45. I've been doing this since I was 15. I started out as a part-time recruiter when I was 15. I've been doing this for a very long time. All right. And over, it's the same thing. I've seen people stay at, low, I'm going to say market rates or below market rates, simply because of how well they've been treated. I've seen caregivers, I go from taking on nothing but private clients, individual one-on-one, to go work for an agency at a pay cut just because they've heard of how good of a reputation the agency had on how they treat their caregivers. I've also seen it go the other way. I've seen great caregivers strike out on their own and just risk losing their licensing and everything to go take private clients because they've just been to one too many agencies that cared about their dollar more than they did about their staff. And this is why I'm such a big believer in having the right culture and the right retention practices, because it really does make a huge difference.
Donna, I disagree with you.
Mhm.
It is about money in a different fashion. It's about, I mean, the nursing homes, it's about money.
Yeah.
Okay, assisted living to a lesser extent because it's more large corporate for a variety of reasons. And but it is about money because it's the employer's pocket. So it is about money.
Oh, from that perspective, yes, I agree.
Well, I mean, so, and again, excuse my ignorance as a non-home care operator. But you talked about the regular hours that at a Walmart, Amazon, etc. So why can't home care agencies offer such? I understand pay per hour; they get a piece of the hourly, and then the rest goes to the franchise or the owner, etc. But why can't you pick your top, I don't know, 25 caregivers and give them salaried or maybe make it a hybrid and give them hours so they give them a guaranteed, or maybe make it a draw and give them health care, give them a 401k.
Oh, I can actually answer that.
Please.
Yeah, that.
Okay, again, excuse my ignorance.
Oh, no. I actually can answer that because I've been on, again, multiple sides of this business, and this is what it comes down to. All right. When the predictability of hours is one very difficult to do in this business, okay? And it gets more difficult to predict when you're in private pay versus Medicaid. Now, they each have their own unique challenges. When you're doing a state payer source or government payer source, such as Medicaid, VA, DODD, Medicare, anything like that, you're limited to the funds that are given to you by the payer source. Now, when you're dealing with private pay, you have a lot more control and flexibility, and a lot of it has to do with, just really the nerve of the owner. Like if the owner doesn't have the stomach to charge $40 an hour, then you're never going to get that $40 an hour pay rate. I mean, I've seen it on a lot of different ways because there's really three types of owners. You have your competitive owner that wants to stay at market rate. You have your discounter, and you have your premium owners that are willing to charge sky's the limit. And that's really what it comes down to. So from a payer source perspective, the advantage will go to private pay versus Medicaid because you have more control over the amount of money coming in. Now, as far as predictability of hours, that has to do with regulations in a lot of states. Okay, first, you were talking about the labor laws, okay? Each state has their own set of labor laws on how things are going to work. And we also are dealing with, the Federal Department of Labor. So when we have a big problem, if I have caregiver A, all right, we have a caregiver. She's working with client A and client B, okay? That time to travel, and there's a whole lot of pay factors that go in. That means if you're working 32 hours and you're working multiple clients, you could go into overtime just from travel time and having to compensate between one client and the other. Some states even go as far as to say you have to pay that mileage in between to the multiple clients. So this puts an additional burden on the agency owners when it comes to being able to schedule one caregiver to multiple clients. Now, it does become feasible if you have one client taking Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays, and another client wants Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday, but that's sometimes a pipe dream. Okay, because you're not always going to get a client that wants the adjustment of hours in the way that would best accommodate a 40-hour work week to a caregiver. The other problem is the volume of hour on a shift. So if I am an agency owner and I've gotten, let's say, 168-hour shift, which is 7 days a week, 24 hours a day, I'm going to split that up between 6 caregivers, and I'm going to do it a number of different ways. So I may not necessarily be able to find a caregiver that wants to work a 12-hour shift 3 days a week. Okay, so I might have to break it up into 3 8-hour shifts throughout the day. So that could become a problem because the 8-hour shifts throughout the day, now I have to accommodate 3 individual schedules on a Monday through Friday, plus another 3 individual schedules, possibly 6, to cover the weekend shift. So it creates a major problem when it comes to predictability. And so couple that with, depending on who your payer source is, what you're asking is almost not possible. And now we're going to add a third layer of complication to this, okay? When it comes to your solution of providing salary, well, here's the problem. In order to be classified, misclassification of caregivers, it's a huge thing. There's actually a company earlier this year that in Pittsburgh got fined $1.2 million by the Department of Labor and the DOJ for misclassification of caregivers. All right, and we recently, right here out of Homedale, New Jersey, we have, a big kickback scheme because people were trying to make adjustments with Bayada. So you're talking about major problems here, because here's the issue. A caregiver, a certified home health aide, personal care assistant, or certified nursing assistant, they all require the supervision of a nurse, whether direct supervision in the case of a certified nursing assistant, or indirect supervision when it comes to a certified home health aide or a home health aide or personal care aide. Okay, so because of the requirement of direct supervision, they cannot qualify to become salaried employees. And that eliminates your predictability issue. That eliminates your possibility to put them down as a salaried employee. And it's also why they eliminated the exemption, because this is what used to exist, what I've touched on earlier, the big rule change under the Labor Department of the Obama administration in October of 2015. It actually started in 2013, but it did not become an official thing. It didn't pass all the Supreme Court challenges until October of 2015, where they removed the exemption from home health aides to be able to get paid a salary. And by doing that, everybody has to become hourly, and it's all based on the premise of the requirement of direct supervision.
All right,
That's
thank you. That clears that up. I appreciate
no problem.
The
And
response.
to add another thing, Julio, that I don't think you brought up was a lot of it's tied to census, right? So
Right.
and census can vary widely, especially with COVID, right? So
Yeah.
you can have a very large census where you need to have all these caregivers going all at once, and then your census could plummet, and you have to be able to keep these caregivers close enough
Employed.
to you that you can get them back on when your census picks up
Mhm.
and they don't go to another company. But I don't know how feasible it would be to keep them paid a regular rate while the census is in the toilet. Another thing that we saw firsthand, and I'm sure a lot of people did, was this was more so in the height of COVID. We were used to facilities that had maybe 6, 7 people on hospice at one building at a time, right? So you're sending one caregiver, they're seeing all these people in one spot. You talked about travel. With COVID, a lot of people might not have been on hospice at the facilities because they weren't letting as many people in, or it just wasn't on the top of their mind. So we had a lot more people that went home on hospice, and you have the same 8 people, the aides seeing eight different people, but instead of seeing them all at one facility, they're traveling all around, maybe multiple counties to see those same people. So it really stretched the staff thin.
Right.
Yeah, there's so many variables, and I didn't even think about half the ones that you spoke about.
Yeah.
But it's tough. You brought up some amazing points, and I know we're running out of time, but I loved the reviews and your email signature. I mean, everyone checks reviews. I was getting a tablecloth the other day, and I found myself looking at reviews on Amazon.
Yep.
What are you doing?
Yeah.
So everyone loves reviews. I had a roof done a couple years ago, And I think it was like maybe a week afterwards, Mun's Construction over in Holland, the guy sent me a text afterwards and he said, how was your experience? Please send us a review. And I
Yeah.
did it because it was spoon fed to me, and it was still, soon enough after the experience that I was giving him a good review,
With caregivers, just on a final tip on that, if you're going to ask for a review, you want to try to do it before 30 days. All right, before they hit their 30-day mark or right around that. Like if you really slips your mind or something, don't let it go beyond 45 days of hiring them on, because by then a lot of the cracks in your system start to come out and they tend to get upset. You're in that honeymoon phase within that 4 to 6 weeks. So you have a higher likelihood of getting a good review.
That's a great point. And, just out of respect for everyone's time, I know people have to hop off and get to work, but thank you so much for taking the time. Julio, can you share your contact info in case anyone wants to get in touch with you?
Yeah, if anybody wants to find me, just you can go right to thebrionesgroup.com. As a matter of fact, can I put it on the screen for 1 second?
Yeah, sure. Put it up.
Hold on. Let me see. Where am I? All right. All right. Yeah, you guys can find me right there, brionesgroup.com. All right. And I have on there, if anybody's interested, I am doing a free strategy session for 30 minutes. You get to ask one question, no obligation or nothing. I don't even put you on my email list if you don't want. All right. I just do this as a courtesy to people because I know right now everybody's struggling because of everything going on with COVID. So it's just kind of a way I'm giving back.
Great. That's awesome. So thank you for sharing everything on behalf of myself, John Freitag with All American Hospice, Desiree Krager with Premier Homecare, and Donna Dachuk with Rothkopf Elder Law. Thanks for taking the time this morning. I appreciate it. Thanks everyone for joining, and thank you for all the questions.
All right. Thanks. I'll talk to you again soon. All
Great.
right.
Thanks. Bye-bye.